You are listening to the Examine Life with Bram Levinson. I'm walking down the road that leads from the hotel that we stay at in Paros to the beach, to the shoreline where we do meditation. I wanted to share the sounds of morning here. It's like Animal Farm. As I walk down the road, I find it suspiciously silent, given that this is the road down which everybody would walk to get to the meditation shoreline. And even though we would do it in silence, I'm used to hearing everybody's footsteps, not just my own. It's been a while since I've recorded for the podcast, as I'm sure you're aware of. And the reasons for that are manifold, but basically I really just felt compelled to not record. And I was really looking forward to picking it back up while I was here, which is what's happening. I wasn't sure if I would, but I brought the microphone anyway, and I'm happy that I did. Because I wanted to share this, not just this moment with those of you who didn't come on the trip this year, but I wanted to, just share a bit of what this place is like. This place where my soul lands, this place where my soul landed for the first time when I first came here, and I wasn't even quite sure what was happening. I just knew that I recognized this place on like such a felt sense level, deep in my gut. I'm sure as you can hear for yourself now, I'm on this sort of rocky, pebbled beach, this beach where we sit in meditation. There's no wind this morning, which is what I'm used to when I come to Paros, but it was very windy this year. Lots of wind. And I guess I wanted to record this morning because I wanted to address why I haven't recorded anything or put any podcast episodes up in essentially 9 months. I think initially my reasoning was that I had stuff that I wanted to record and that I wanted to share. But for one reason or another, it just didn't happen. I live next to an elementary school, and there are always kids screaming. And rightfully so, given the past year and a half. And so I didn't want that in the background. Another reason, and probably one that I would be better keeping to myself, but you know me, I don't really keep shit to myself, is that it just seemed like at that point everybody and their mother was beginning a podcast. And in the same way that most social media channels are people talking without listening, like everybody's speaking but no one's listening, I feel like all these people who, buy these microphones and start these podcasts, well, not all of them, but you know what I mean. I feel like it's an exciting new medium for sure. But I also felt like there were just a lot of people talking shit into like an empty void. And I don't want to be a part of that. I didn't want to be a part of that. And, I tend to retreat. When I see contexts that may involve me or things happening in the wellness industry that I don't like. And so if I in any way have contributed to that, I'll tend to retreat. And that had something to do with it as well. But with that said, I felt compelled to pick up the microphone now and post this now, first of all, because I'm here. I'm in Paros. I am at somewhat of the other end of a very long and laborious journey. And that journey was largely about making this trip happen. In the face of adversity, in the face of judgment from other people and opinions from other people, in the face of an ever-changing situation and an unstable situation. For 6-7 months. Well, at the beginning of the 6-7 months, I was fielding emails from people and phone calls and texts from people who had registered to come on the yoga and meditation vacation, expressing how they were afraid that it wasn't going to happen again. And in 2020, when this trip didn't happen, for me it was, I'd say, traumatic. And I'm using that word very specifically. The year was already difficult. But, me coming here, when I come to Paros, when I come to Greece, as I said before, it's where my soul lands. And so I do it I do it every year. And when it couldn't happen, I got on with it, as we do. But what ended up happening was that it started triggering old patterns of defense against trauma, patterns from my childhood, patterns which involved me going very deep inside my own mind and staying there, not expressing my thoughts, not expressing my fears, really believing that it was up to me to figure it out. And, as we know about trauma is not just about an incident that occurs, it's about feeling alone throughout the incident, that you're on your own. And that's an old pattern for me. And so not only the pandemic, but not being able to get here triggered that. And I fell back into it. And it was only through gradually extricating myself as I could analyze what was going on. Well, that's the way that I sort of recovered, for lack of a better term. But another way that I recovered was telling myself that come hell or high water, I was getting here in 2021. Even if it would kill me, even if it was the end of bodily death, I would get here. Because to not get here, well, to me that was worse. And listen, I know that sounds like some privileged white guy talking shit, but I'm telling you, first of all, that I recognize my privilege, and I understand it. Number 2, I recognize my luck. The luck that I've had to be born into a body that is male and to be born into a part of the world and into a family where there is enough material abundance to be able to even talk about travel. But number 3, I am fully aware that I have made decisions that have resulted in me being here. I am proud of those decisions, and I understand that I had to fight. This is like my own personal hero's journey to get here. In the face of adversity, in the face of judgment, in the face of, fielding the texts and the questions from people who thought that it wasn't going to happen, and literally saying to them, I'm hopeful, I'm really hopeful it's going to happen, even though I had nothing to base that on, except my determination. And then what ensued was 6-7 months of checking the news daily. Checking Greek news, checking Canadian news, checking Greek restrictions, Canadian restrictions. I was paying attention to the news, which is something I do not do, ever. I have an aversion towards it. I think that the news is not intended to necessarily inform us. It's intended to fuck with us. Well, that's what it does to me anyway. And what I've learned is that not being connected to a steady stream of chaos is helpful. I don't need to be connected to the news. Ignorance is bliss indeed. If something is important enough, I'll find out about it. And that's my experience. So, to make a long story short, I didn't think this trip was going to happen. Not entirely. I was seeing how the EU was putting Greece in the red. I was seeing how Greece's numbers were skyrocketing. I was seeing how Air Canada was short-staffed and how people were going to the airport for their flights and being told literally an hour or two before their flight that the flight had been canceled because there wasn't enough staff, even though that's not what Air Canada was giving as an official reason. And so trust me when I say that when I went to the airport, I was in high alert mode, almost like PTSD mode. When I was at my gate, I was in that same mode. When I got on the plane, I was on that same mode or in that same mode. And when the plane took off, I couldn't believe it. I literally couldn't believe it. And when the plane landed in Greece, I thought, holy shit. And I knew that it was down to all the things that I mentioned before. Privilege and luck and determination, resilience. I also think that I have angels watching over me. I won't really go too deeply into that, but I suspect I know who they are. But I got here. And so just getting here, that alone was like, oh my God, massive. And of course, instead of being able to just sit back and breathe a sigh of relief, I then went into, okay, I'm here. Now I've got everybody coming on the trip that has to get here. And so I went through the whole process again of preparing myself to field late arrivals, canceled flights, canceled ferries. And much to my surprise, everybody showed up on time, as scheduled. And we had the most transformational, magnificent, memorable, life-affirming experience. It was exactly what we needed after the fuckery of the past year and a half. We bubbled. We became a community. We became each other's family. We created this thing in a moment in time that I think is really unique and is not happening in many places around the world right now. We almost lived ignorant of what was going on. You know, after we determined that everybody was good and healthy, we just lived. We just enjoyed. We just luxuriated. We moved and we breathed and we meditated and we used our minds and we did this thing that was healing for all of us. And so I'm a few days right now, I'm speaking to you a few days after everybody has left. And I'm on this beach now, which is again suspiciously silent. And I have been suspiciously silent over the past 9 months. I think that we are all, in some way or another, carrying the effects of pandemica with us. And most of us are carrying them in ways that we have absolutely no awareness of. We are completely oblivious to it. We are in just get on with it mode. We are in survival mode. And of course, that's what we need to do. We need to get on with it. But I think what is really imperative is that we operate from the understanding that we are carrying something with us that we are unaware of. It is not normal for human beings to be kept under tension the way we have been kept under tension continuously and incessantly since March 2020. It's like a spring that's being pushed down, that is just coiled up in tension, ready to spring back, and yet none of the resources or officials or, quote-unquote leaders have told us that we can recoil or uncoil, spring back, and release that tension. When I created this trip, initially I was just creating it because it's something that I do every year. And then when I set my sights on making it happen, given the fuckery of everything that's going on, my intention was, number one, to get here. For my own, health and well-being, to get here. In equal measures, it was about the health and well-being of everyone who would come on the trip. Everyone who was jumping beyond themselves, jumping beyond their fear to get here. And if you've ever come on any of my trips, you know that I always kick off by saying I recognize that you each have taken a risk to get here. And you will see that there is glory with risks. This year, the risks were exponential compared to other years. Every single person who came jumped beyond, old versions of who they have been in the face of fear. And in doing so, they reap the benefits of doing it. And so when I initially created the trip, not initially, when I created the trip after knowing that what it would entail, the risks that it would entail, I did it with the intention of creating an opportunity that people would remember forever. For their forever. I did it to create a space where people could heal in a way that we're not being offered. We're being fed all of this fear and tension with very little resources, or very few resources, or care for our actual well-being. And so I wanted to do that. This is also the first year that I have set a big chunk of time after the event for me. Partially to make up for lost time. And partially because I wanted a quiet, alone space in my favorite part of the world to finish this book that I'm working on called Storyteller. And so I set a month aside. I set a month aside within which I could be alone and I could work. And when I wasn't working, I could be here. Not just in my mind, but in my body. Right here on this beach, right here by this sea. And I thought that that's why I was doing it. The literal reason for me setting that time aside was really to just have time to work, to unplug from everything else, and to heal. I trusted that it would be healing. And then what happened yesterday was fascinating. I woke up yesterday morning and I stayed in bed. I didn't just get up. And I felt this weird sense of relaxation. And I decided that instead of getting up to write, I was going to get up, I was going to practice a little bit of yoga, and I was going to get on my moped and explore the island, explore areas of Paros that I had never explored, that I had never done when I had other people in the car with me or when I was working. And I found the most amazing places, incredible hidden beaches and fantastic restaurants. And what happened yesterday, I'm almost embarrassed to say, was that I relaxed in a way that I don't remember relaxing. My partner has told me that I'm too busy multitasking and too busy just doing. And how can I put this? My retort has always been, yeah, but that's how I operate. That's how I thrive. Well, cut to yesterday. Yesterday was about realizing, I think that I've been in go mode, which may be another reason why I haven't recorded a podcast episode, because I've just been doing so much other stuff. And maybe there's a part of me that has recognized that, there's a lot of doing. I didn't realize that in creating this time for myself, this space for myself, I was going to tap into perhaps a defense mechanism of doing that needs to, I don't want to say back down, it needs to be let go of. I need to let go of it a little bit, maybe even more than a little bit. I guess the reason why I'm doing this, sharing this, recording this, is because if this is my experience, then I'm suspecting this may be your experience as well. None of it is that unique. I want you all to consider that perhaps you are walking around with tendrils of fallout from the past year and a half, fallout from being under tension for so long, fallout from having to put the blinders on and get on with it. I want you to consider that what you need is not going to be offered to you by any government or any boss. Very few partners or family members. I want you to consider that it is up to you to create the opportunity for you to literally get out of your own space and go somewhere that makes your soul hum. And to do it with no intention of being robo-tourist or robo-employee if you're going to work from afar. Do it with the intention of backing off of how you have been, who you have been, especially over the last year and a half, and just create space to see what emerges. Create space to see what reveals itself. Go by feel, which means only do what you feel in the moment. Oh, okay, this is what I want to do. And if that includes sleeping in, or getting up early, or practicing yoga, or going for a walk, or not doing anything, well, just respect that, observe that, answer that call. I want my example to be just that, an example. Not only of what's possible, but of how every single one of us has the opportunity to show up for ourselves in a way that no one else can do. And to do for ourselves what only we can do. Because trust me, no one made this happen for me except me. And maybe my guides. I'm happy to record this. I'm happy to be speaking to you again. I hope this finds you well. I hope that there's something in this that is inspiring you in some way, maybe provoking thought in some way. And for now, I'm going to sign off. I'm staring at the sun glinting off of the sea with Naxos in the background. Monochrome. It's almost like just shades of silver and blue. It doesn't even look real. But wow, am I ever grateful to be here. Physically, cognitively, emotionally, spiritually, all of it. Take good care of yourselves. I'll be back with more as I feel compelled to record. And with the sun beaming down on me, I'm going to sign off. Give this all a good think. I'll see you later. This has been the Examine Life with Bram Levinson.